Welcome to Grit, the Real Estate Growth Mindset podcast, hosted by Brian Charlesworth, founder of Sisu. Sisu provides growth automation software for real estate. You'll hear stories from real estate thought and technology leaders, team owners, and brokers on how they grew their business in a rapidly changing industry. You'll learn how to transform your brokerage and teams into a high-performing and analytics-driven business so you have a new, durable, competitive advantage against disruption in your market. So let's get right into it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Grit Podcast. I'm Brian Charlesworth, the founder of Sisu and the host of the show. And today is a big one, guys. It's a big one. If you're looking at the picture, you can probably see the face, but you all know who he is. And Jon Cheplak is on the show today. So Jon, grateful to have you.
Brian, it's always good to sit down and spend time with you. I was really pleased when y'all reached out to sit down and chat. So this will be fun.
You know, usually I do a big intro, but with Jon, I don't think there's a need for an intro. Everyone knows who you are. But for me, one of the coolest things is I know you have a story and you had challenges and you had addiction. And I hope you don't mind going back to that because this podcast is called the Grit Podcast. And, you know, a lot of people give up on life when they get in certain situations, and we all have challenges. I think so many people watch you or watch some other people and they think, oh man, it's easy for Jon. Well, it's not, right? Like they don't see how many hours you put in. So I'd love to just start off by hearing a little bit more of your story and maybe your background, where you came from, and why you're bringing so much value in the industry today.
Well, I really appreciate it because I think that, you know, the first thing, I've always been highly committed to personal development, but I even went in at a higher level over the last 18 months, whether it's coaching or personal development. And, you know, one of the things that Dean Graziosi, you know, says really clearly to me all the time is, you know, it's emotions long before strategy and tactic. And emotions come down to who we are, you know, our emotional intelligence, our emotional maturity, and how we're developing. And you know this, Brian, I mean, we get to interact with a lot of special people throughout North America. And, you know, if we really get the chance to, and you're a numbers guy and I'm a numbers guy, and at the same time, we're a relationship piece and understand the human being. But when you peel the layers back, a lot of times it really comes down to something personal, right? So for me, thank you for bringing it up, because I think also the timing is really critical, because people are discovering over the last year, maybe 18 months, or maybe the last 6 months, depending on where people were at. I think that a lot of people are understanding more so of what mental toughness is, and or whether or not they have mental toughness, because I don't know that it was tested. We have things come up in life, but I mean, from a business standpoint, you know, that area for most people's lives, you had to be living under a rock, had been just pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so the timing and looking at it, yeah, you know, I had built my career, and there's some other things too that hopefully to share. I'd built my career based on getting results and you know, doing the work, selling houses, being a leader, et cetera. And along the way, as I look back, one of the things and the big mistakes was just trying to prove myself instead of who I was becoming. And I think when you do that, you know, there's going to be a crossroads of conflict that's going to take place. And so anyways, for me personally, from 21 to 41, it was in and out of rehab joints, couldn't get sober. And then at 41, I'm 58 now, 41, 42, I went into rehab, and actually the only one I didn't stay in. I just knew that I was absolutely done, and I've been sober since then. But I had gone all the way down at, you know, a grown man, where I owned a bicycle and owed the IRS $4.3 million. I still have I always love it. People say, oh yeah, that's exaggerated. Here you go. There's I kept those tax liens. I've still got them, right?
Yeah.
And I think,
You don't forget that number when you owe that amount, right?
no, you really don't. And I guess what I want to point out to people in this right now, because I think it is a time, Brian, you were just around a bunch of people, you know, and it's a time of mental toughness. And I think the mistake that, as I look back at it, I've grown through and continue to grow, is that, you know, forget about the outcome you're trying to get and just obsess over the person that you are becoming every single day. Because if you focus too much on winning, and you do win, a lot of times it can go, okay, so now what? But if you lose, what can happen is it can spin people out versus who am I becoming every single day? So I was forced into that, because at that point, and I think it's given people a background, and because it's kind of really been the foundation of, I had the strategies and tactics many, many years prior to. I've been in business for 20 plus years, but I wasn't really going to that real next level that I never even expected or imagined could happen for me, was to make principle-based decisions. When I did get sober, I kind of came clean with my brother 18 months into it and said, "Hey, I'm still a fraud." He says, "What do you mean? You're doing great." I said, "No, I haven't filed my taxes in 10 years." And he looked at me, and this is a moment, and an opportunity came up for me just a month ago that was similar but not. I said, "I'm filing bankruptcy. I'm doing payment plans. I'm bailing from all this." He says, "No, you're not." He says, "You're paying it off." He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Because you paying it off or not is a matter of life or death for you, because it's a conflict in the principles of who you are. You've walked away from something. Let me ask you this.
That's right.
If someone owed you $4.3 million, would you want them to pay you back?" "Well, of course I would." He said, "Well, here's what you're going to do." And I said, "Well, I'm going to live on top ramen. I'll never get out of this." And he said, "Well, didn't you have to surrender when you finally decided to get sober?" I said, "Yes." He says, "That's your theme." He said, "You're paying it off." And at that point, 18 months sober, I think I still had enough fear of what could happen if I did get back to the drinking thing. It literally was life or death for me. And I plugged away. And so there's a couple things in this plugging away. And today, I don't know that I need to go, put a number out there, but from a life I'm able to live with my family, a net income I'm able to create, and a net worth is what I thought I'd always hear about other people having and doing. And what I would say in that is if I look at it, I was forced into, I couldn't have a victory. I couldn't buy things. I couldn't buy anything. The IRS had a lien on me. I paid rent, and I had food, and I had water, and I had shelter, and I had a gym membership. That's all I could afford. I didn't have time to worry about TV. And so I had to break this thing down. And I think it's just so relevant right now for many of us in this type of market. I had to break this thing down and say, okay, but all right, let's focus on that end result. That end result was so far away. It wasn't even realistic to me. How can I feel like I'm winning? And it came down to designing, what do you have to do today, like Groundhog Day? And
Mhm.
so I've been able to, it's been 16 years of getting sober. And I think the neat thing, and Spring has been in the room, and Spring's an example and a contributor to this too. Because if you take a look at, and I don't need to tell you about your wife, but I will, is you look at how Spring lives her life. Spring is A, she wants to live that way. B, she wants to inspire people to be their best version of self in as a family member, as a spouse, in her health and wellness, and in business. And the thing that I'm most proud of is I didn't shy away from that.
Mhm.
Wasn't bashful about it. And I'm not sitting on my stages saying everyone get sober. I wish I knew how to have a drink. But what's happened is we're able to grow businesses today because of certainly strategy and tactic, but people come in our rooms and go, I mean, they just say it up on stage. "Hey, I'm working out more, I'm eating better, I'm not drinking as much, or I don't drink." And so a couple things in there is everything going on personally will show up privately, will show up publicly. Number two, the growth of your business is inside your business, and it's inside you as a human being. And number three is to do big things, you've just got to do the next little right thing right. So I think finally, the best marketing piece you can have in growing a business and growing a brand is being an example of someone who's overcome something and stuck with it consistently over
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that because it seems to me that many people, many, and I view you as one of them, have to hit rock bottom in order to really just take off, right? And I think part of that is, and most people that have hit rock bottom, like truly hit rock bottom, are the strongest people on the planet because they're like, I'm never going to get there again, right? I mean, no way I'm going to allow that. I'm this person, not this person. And now every day you're focused on growing and improving and going to that next level. So why is it that you think the human race is like that, that we have to hit rock bottom?
It's a really good question. I think that we're programmed to be average, and that's what we're programmed outside of us is average. You'll see
Hmm.
someone do good at something, maybe they'll have a good month in sales, or maybe they'll get good grades, or whatever it may be, and then can they carry it through? No, they don't. But then
Yeah.
they've had that taste of the high, if you will. And I think what can happen is a self-destruct mode can take over in a lot of cases. We all are motivated. If we weren't motivated, we wouldn't breathe. I mean, I always take it down to its simplest of terms. And I think what happens is for excellence to take place, though, we're all programmed for average. We just are. It's all around us. But for excellence to take place, you have to have mental toughness like there is no tomorrow. Bottom line, I posted about this the other day, a strategy or a tactic. We can go find it on the internet. We can find it on YouTube. I can get on the phone with you, an abundant person like you, anyone. I can find it out. But how come people don't do it? The reason people don't do it is because they expect things to go smoothly and they've done nothing to train themselves to, you can't read a book and gain mental toughness. You just can't.
Yeah.
You can't go to a seminar and gain mental toughness. Yet mental toughness is the missing ingredient when you take a look at people that go to the next level. And I think that you take a look at those who've persevered and those who've done well. The next level is hard, and the best training is your ability to go through hard. So I think that's why you have to. Now, what's interesting, and I was having a conversation, I never thought of it this way though either, Ryan. I've never been a fan of the trainings that are out there. There's bunches of them. It breaks you down for 3 days and builds you back
Right.
up.
Oh yeah, been through those many times.
Yeah, but then I say, wait a minute. You know what they're trying to simulate,
Hmm.
my rock bottom, if you will. It's
Yeah.
almost like this simulation because we've seen, I don't think it's ever been presented that way. Hey, listen, if you take a look at every highly successful person, don't ask them how they did it, ask them what they overcame. So someone back in the early days said, listen, there's a pattern over here. Let's create the condition in a classroom.
Yeah.
So I think number one, mental toughness it's the most critical attribute of someone and their ability to build or do something big. And so that's why I think people have to go through it, most definitely.
So thank you for sharing that. 2 weeks ago, I was in Arizona for a week with William Lamb, and
Oh,
you know
yeah.
William.
Springs told me.
So
Well, we got on a Zoom with him once, Spring and I did, and she's just like raved about him.
yeah,
Amazing.
so it was amazing week. The way my life is aligning right now because of that is incredible. But one of the things I wanted to share, you talk about breakdown, and I've been through many of those trainings where they beat you up to bring you down to bring you up, right? And I agree. I don't know that that's necessary. But what he did is really focus on how you talked about programming early on while you were going through that. And he talked about just the different things. And he shared true examples of how his parents were programmed by their parents because his grandpa was in the war. And just a little thing like his grandpa didn't think you could have a successful business because he was in the war and got anyway and a solid relationship together. So because of that, his dad didn't, subconsciously didn't have a successful business because he wanted the family, right? So anyway, it's just amazing what we can pick up from our ancestors, but instead of beating people down, he was just pulling out all those beliefs, right? Those
It's really
beliefs that
good.
don't that
Digging
don't
deep and
serve
going
us.
underneath. Going
Yeah.
underneath. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've talked about mental toughness many times today. Like you brought it up 3 or 4 times already. So when I look at mental toughness, we're in an industry right now where, like the last 2 years, people have to be tough to still be growing. And I see that some people let the market control their business, while others let their actions and what they can control their business. Right. And so I want you to talk about that for a minute, maybe with team owners. And then I think there's a big challenge in this industry right now where so many agents had it so easy for so many years that they just don't know how to work anymore.
Yeah. Good. I think there's some programming that has taken place that caused it because the outcome is based on your input to it. We're seeing it. I should have never opened a mortgage company in this time because rates are bad. Well, we're crushing, right? I mean, we go thing after thing after.
Yeah. Likewise, right? We've started a mortgage company simply
Yes.
that part does JVs with teams, and it's adding a nice little pad onto those teams' pocketbooks, right? If they're willing to do that. So
Yeah.
you know
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's doing the work. Here's what it is, and a lot of people say that, I'm polarizing. No, what I believe is everything has its duality. So number one thing that's showing up today is we're taught stop looking in the rearview mirror. There's a reason that the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror. Well, that's ridiculous. Number one, the only thing that you can truly share with me is what you don't like in something that happened in the past. Nothing else is true because you don't know, because it's beyond you. So that's number one. Number two, your future is in your past. Number three, in your past are parts of you. And this is why, it's put it behind you and don't put some energy. Don't think about it while they talk about the windshield. Well, and the unfortunate programming in that is in most people's cases, it's a part of us. It was for me for many years until I went through the training, the shadow work with Debbie Ford, was that was a part of me that I rejected, was embarrassed about, and I hid. And whether it's something that happened to me or something I did, but what happens is that most people have been taught to let that go and they haven't dealt with it instead of using it as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Going back and looking at the toughest of days and toughest of times and what was the good that came out of it. And it's very interesting. Many people that you'll go and visit that with, or I'll go and visit it with and try and facilitate that movement to them of tell me all the positives of it. You're ridiculous. I'm not willing to go here. And they're going to be stuck forever. So they don't have that tool to draw upon, yet it's right there. That ability to demonstrate mental toughness, they've already done it. So they could go back to this borrowed belief, but it requires deep work. There's one thing right there.
Isn't that as simple, John, as just being accountable for everything that happens in our life?
It's called personal responsibility. And the exercise I always love is I tell people this. So you're sitting at a stop sign and someone rear ends you. Raise your hand if it's your fault. No hands go up. And also, see, there's the difference. You're going to pick and choose what you own.
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible because I was there.
Right.
Anything that you don't own, you can't change. And so own maybe a challenge with a parent or a past relationship, a drama or a trauma, and look at how maybe you participated, how you brought it on, or maybe you didn't, but what did it create for you? Part of my upbringing, I would say, was, anyone watching or listening to this would know this, was discipline, and I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Discipline at a high level, and didn't like it. And let me tell you something, today it was the biggest gift on the planet. And that helped me go back to a relationship with a stepfather who did his best at that time and really realized he was doing his best because I thought back to how he was raised, and not to give someone an out, but then also taking a look at it and saying, hey, was it good or bad? I don't know, but what was the positive in it? I can tell you the positive in it. I mean, I am known for disciplined, committed, and consistent. So I think that's part of it. Here's the other part. And, as I was thinking this before you even asked, you look at you in spring, both of you in your life, you're a great example. When you walk in the room, people know that you take care of yourself. When you walk in the room, people know that you have self-respect and self-pride. When you walk in the room, people know you're committed and you're consistent. Well, when you also walk in the room, people know that you have forced suffering in your life, whether it's you're jumping up on a mountain bike's great. It's not easy. It's ridiculous. You're burning yourself, doing the climbs that Spring does, you going along with her. I mean, exercise that you guys do consistently, that's for suffering. And so there's another reason.
You mean going to New York today for the New York Marathon?
Yes. Right. Right. So that's the other thing, though. How come people are struggling? Like, you're going to hit hard times, but you've got a programming. Part of your regiment, your routine, Brian, is listen, you can't just go to the gym. You can go to the gym and goof off, but you can't look the way that you look. If there's not some element of forced suffering, most people don't have that. So I think that's another piece that many people miss. I think ultimately, though, it's good old programming. When people experience, we don't make choices logically. Typically, as humans, I think they say 80% of buyers. Well, a buyer is someone who makes a choice.
Yeah.
So let's just say 80% of human beings are, and if you look at agents, 80% of real estate agents are expressive personality, they're emotional. Well, we also know that human beings, the heart chooses, mind justifies. Well, Brian, you and I are going to sit down, you and I and Spring are going to sit down, have a cup of coffee. We'll sit down with a Brett Jennings, have a cup of coffee and say, hey, the market's doing this. There's half as many sales this year. What do we need to do? Okay, double our activity. Okay, we're fine. Bye. I mean,
Yeah.
sure, we've got to do our skills. And that's
Control
how
the controllable, right?
but also, and you provide a tool, the most advanced tool from a reporting standpoint that shows people here it is right here on a silver platter.
Yeah.
Okay, your sales are here because of A, B, C, D. It's right there. It's displayed. Sisu is displayed in the top teams throughout North America. The logic that is the solution. But heart chooses, mind justifies. We're emotional. So there's a human condition there. But I think the ultimate piece, it's been years of programming. And not to be political to it, it didn't matter who was in office or not, but we all went through a condition of you get something for nothing. When they started giving
Mhm.
money out to people,
Yeah.
it conditioned people. So I think that's where it's at right now. I think the only way out for folks that are stuck is you got to really look at what's important to you in your personal life. Because great, you're not going to be logical, then great, let's really trigger that emotion. I think there's people like you. I know how important your family is to you. I know how important it is to Spring and all of our friends. And sure, we want to look at the life we want to create for them. But there's something more important for you and for Spring. It's like, who am I every day? My self-respect, my pride, my principles, all those type of things. And I'm not saying you or anyone is better than others, but a lot of people really look at things as cause and effect, and they're so caught up in the outcome. So
Yeah.
I think the only suggestion I have is, first of all, go to a leader and ask a leader, whether it's a leader, it's a coach, go to Sisu, just sit, because certainly I know that most, if not all, people watching or listening to this are Sisu members. You know what? Go have a spiritual experience with Sisu. And a couple of things are going to happen. Number one, you're going to see no activity. Okay. And there's two reasons for that. A, you're not doing it. Or B, you're not even adopting a strong tool that can help you with your business. So now who can help you? No one can help you. No one can help you when you're doing nothing. And no one can help you when you're not documenting your numbers. Right. So sit down and look at, in some way, shape, or form, what is it I need to fix? Well, I need to start doing activity. Okay, start. Then number two, I need to track it. Great. Start tracking. But then number three, okay, that was easy. Well, no, you need to go take a look at a parent that you plan on taking care of, or a responsibility to take care of, a child that you made promises to, a significant other where, I'll just tell you, you're a grown ass man and you're the man of the house. And I'm sorry, old fashioned ways go. I mean, be the man of the house. And that's not saying that, listen, my wife is a badass just like yours. And
Yeah.
I'm the
She
man of
is.
this house, but don't get me wrong. My wife is her person too. But still, I mean, just whatever it is, to take a look in the mirror at what your responsibility is on this planet. And that's the best that I can say. Or here's the final one: face the fact you're not going to change, and maybe a shift type job is for you. I
And don't
mean,
complain about it if that's you.
yeah.
So,
And you're not a bad person or a
yeah.
loser. You made a choice.
Yes. So, something you've talked about several times today is who am I becoming every single day? I consider that like personal growth. The other thing you talked about is go do something for somebody, right? Whether it's a child, a parent, which is contribution. Growth and contribution, right? I've learned that decades ago from Tony Robbins. Growth and contribution. If we have growth in our life, if we're growing every day, we're happy, right? Growth equals happiness, and contribution just takes it to the next level. So you, I know, are focused just by the people you surround yourselves with. I know you are focused on personal growth. Most people would say, oh, Jon Cheplak, like he's up here in this industry, but you're here, but you want to be there, right? Right. So how do you keep that growth? And I've found that in my experience at Sisu, if I'm not growing every day, I can't be the leader that I need to be to take my company to the next level. So growth, personal growth is such an important thing. And part of that for you, I know, is fitness as well and health, which is so important, right? I mean, without health, we have nothing.
Sure.
So
Yeah, it's funny. And you can have a whole bunch of problems in your life and business, and people wake up every day with little issues here and there. When you have a health problem, you have one problem.
yeah.
You have no other problems in your life then. You have none. So that, that really puts a bow on that one. I like the contribution and personal development. In the personal development part of it, I think the most important thing is, and it was interesting, about 2 years ago, I told my wife, Because I had gone on this run where it was just multiple masterminds and a bunch of stuff. And I'd scaled it back to one that I was in outside of the industry. And 18 months ago, I went all in with Dean Graciosi and Tony Robbins. And the reason I share this with people, just like you, I mean, you just went through an intensive last week yourself. You're constantly growing. You are a family that is business growth oriented as a result of the people that you all are becoming. The one thing that I know is that every time I got stuck in business, it wasn't a new strategy or tactic. It was something in my emotional intelligence and emotional maturity. And emotional intelligence and emotional maturity, okay, that's a sophisticated term. It is, do you do what you say you're going to do when you do it, and when you don't, you happily admit it. I think there were early times in my career where I would say, hey, my results mask those type of things. It's okay. It's okay. And I could get a good number as far as an income is concerned, and I could get a good income, and I could justify little things. And the problem is, though, is the next level is in filling those gaps and doing what you say you're going to do, when you're going to do it, being willing to be held accountable, and constantly allowing other people to be a third party observer of you and give feedback. I think the biggest things that were tough for me was abundance, which I talk about now all the time because I live it, but also was allowing a third party observer to really, really give me feedback. And so I think it is seeking environments where you are, and it's an overused term, where you're very uncomfortable and there's people that are doing much more than you. I think seeking environments where you're going to get exposed. Being exposed allows you, that's going to serve as a catalyst to choose growth or not. Because what will happen is, just like you said, like the organization will only go as far as you do. And then what happens, so that's when the contribution comes back in, because then you become a vessel. I mean, you got to walk the talk, of course. You can go out and get the knowledge and stay engaged in the personal development. But now if you're truly striving to learn it and are learning it and striving to do it every single day, now you become a vessel that can impact other people's lives. Because the biggest reason people will leave you is not because of money. They will leave you because of lack of growth. And they see there is not a runway, whether it's growth in the relationship of what you can bring to me, right? People say, oh, I got a better split, or I got this, or they'll talk about money. I'm sorry, it's not. Are you a growth path to me? So that's where it's super, super important to me, because the next piece is, I think when you build a brand and you start getting this business, now it's like, okay, how can I bring other people forward? The first thing is I want to contribute, but now how can I bring other people forward? And when you do that and you transfer your skill set and your knowledge and the development, the personal development, your experiences, your series of misadventures, you can practically finish people's sentences. You can be relatable. You can support them. And then what happens is, in that work, you build deeper relationships. And then all of a sudden, guess what happens in your business? You got partnerships in businesses with these people, and your business grows. It's a crazy thing. So, but I think it's the three things: humility, vulnerability, transparency, and then the fourth is willingness. Those are critical to grow.
So two things. One, you talked about mental, and I've seen this with myself. I've seen this with Spring at times, and it happens to all of us, right? There's also this mental thing where I think we get comfortable with, okay, right? And so our subconscious is actually stopping us from going to that next level, because we've trained our subconscious that that's comfortable, right? That's what we truly want. We're okay with that, right? So how do we get beyond that?
If you've been enjoying Grit, please help us continue to grow the channel by leaving a 5-star review and sharing it with a friend. Now back to Grit.
It is letting go of outcomes. Outcomes are a distraction. When I really came to, and I say this, I tell people I had an unfair advantage. And it came to consciousness, though, many years after I came out the other side of it, right? And I really try and share this a lot with people. I had no choice. I mean, like Brian, the most important thing for me was just get through the work I had to do today. I mean, I can't look forward to buying a new car. I can't look forward to buying a house. I can't look forward to going shopping, going on a trip. I could not look forward to any little tiny rewards, right? And I think the rewards can be that distraction for people. and a lot of it can be, maybe it's background and stuff, but we've all seen the stories of people that hit riches and win a gold medal, or they win a world championship, or they do something. And the next thing you know, their life spun out. Well, because that was all that mattered to them.
Yep.
That was all that mattered to them. And so for me, it is, and I would share with everyone, I learned this by default. The only thing that could be a victory from me was, did I check the box today? Was I the best version of who I could be as a human being as I interacted with people? Did I bring my best forward in the work to impact other people? And how did I do in my health, my fitness, and my nutrition, my family? That was it. I had to look for victories in the process. And it was many, many years of me doing that before I could even go out. And I remember I bought a truck, and the IRS, when they say, okay, you're going to pay us off, great. We want access to everything. We were going to watch your earnings. And I went and bought a truck, and they called because I needed a power of attorney with my CPA, because I didn't want the stress of them talking to me. Okay, great. I've got it. Yeah, I get a demand letter from them that I've got to go sell it. I mean, like, those were the type of things that were going on. Fortunately,
Wow.
in real estate, he needs it. I mean, I'm in real estate, yeah. So even when I get a little tiny victory, like buy a truck, oh my gosh, I'm buying something, I get hit again, and I have to say, okay, you know what though? Who was I today? And who am I
Do
tomorrow?
you think that IRS challenge, John, is part of, I mean, that's a big challenge. Most people would never have the confidence to get out of that, right? Do you think that's part of why you're where you are today?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It was the catalyst. The first thing, getting sober, Brian, I had to surrender. And then when that came forward, well, what are you going to fight with the IRS?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I mean, okay, great. Go get an attorney, and the attorney will win, and the IRS will win too, and you'll lose more, right? I mean,
Exactly. Exactly. There's no way out of that other than to do what you did.
to do what you do, and 100%, I had an unfair advantage because A, that was my option. B, I responded to it and just did what I needed to do. And C, it took me to a place to really, I think people have these things. Someone asked me months ago, outside of an event, what's your gratitude list look like? And I said, I don't have one. I said, I'm grateful for one thing. He said, what? I said, my breath. He said, what?
As
I said,
long as you're
y'all,
grateful, that's like the simplest thing to be grateful for. If you're grateful for your breath, you're always in gratitude, right?
I said, y'all make things so complicated, man. And let me
Yeah.
tell you, where does that come from? And who taught you that? I said, no one taught me that. I had to discover it, man. Because
Yeah.
listen, what I had to wake up and face every single day, I mean, there weren't too many exciting things. And it taught me how to love deeper and value family and friends and relationships more, when I had really been just this get results type person. And that whole IRS situation, I mean, every single challenge we go through is a catalyst that has been put in front of you, period, for you to decide if you're going to go through it and go to the next level. And
Hmm.
when you're in it, you don't think you're getting out of it. But now I look back, Brian, I mean, I draw upon that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I hit everything. It's kind of like today, people say, why you still do, I do about 65 coaching calls. Why do you still do 65 coaching calls? You can this, you can that. No, no. That's who I am. I
Okay.
love it.
So I respect you in so many ways. I mean, for health, for your mental toughness, for eating rocks. Let's not forget that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's my wife's line.
but one of the things I respect you most for, John, is abundance. I think there are very few people that I see that have the abundance mentality that you have. And I've watched that firsthand because you coach Spring, right?
Yeah.
And you coach her to help her build a coaching program right now to compete directly with your coaching program. So, like, that's true abundance, right? Because you know there's plenty to go around. So, I just like to think, I mean, so many people like just turn on their enemies, or it's not even an enemy. It's maybe someone who does a little competition, or they may not even be competition, and you're still like upset about it. How did you get that mentality?
It was a mentor that had said to me, anything that you resist will persist. And we've heard that quote and cliche, but he took it deeper. He said, wherever you are stopping the outflow of something you have, there's a blockage of inflow that'll be allowed to come into you because you can only have so much. He said, so that's going to create, you've been to Lake Tahoe? Yeah, I love Lake Tahoe. It's clearest lake, one of the clearest lakes in the world. He said, sure, because there's inflow, outflow. It's one of the most beautiful places on the planet. He said, but have you ever stepped in a pond? Yeah, it's murky, it's dirty, there's no inflow, no outflow. And so he had said to me that if you want more, he said two things. If you want more to come into you, he said more has to flow out of you, and you'll be amazed at what shows up. Three things, I'm sorry. Second thing that he said to me is this is the minute that you will not give away something you are doing, and you know this. I mean, here's my funnel, here's this. Hey, run this same program I just run. I think you'll do better with your audience, etc. He said the minute that you are unwilling to share something that you are doing right with someone else, you're no longer betting on yourself. You have stopped betting on yourself. It's just purely that simple. And the third thing that he said is everything that you've worked so hard for, the only way you can keep it is if you give it away constantly. The moment that you stop giving it away, it's not going to show up in the way that it has for a couple of reasons. That's just a principle in life. He said, but what happens is you've learned it once and done it once. He says, but when you give it to someone and you teach it to them, the teacher learns it twice and you'll get even better at it. And that was simply what it came down to. And another place where I questioned it, but it came back to surrender. And I surrendered to that principle. And here we are. I mean, it's just like, for example, just like you, we launched Mortgage and it's doing really well. And I coach two other loan officers. I coach the number one loan officer in the world, 7 years, I think, standing, Shant Benazi, and he did over 100 and some million last month. I've coached him 5 years. I coached Shayla, who does 60, 70 million. And we get on the coaching calls and anything that I'm doing, right, and listen, these guys are experts in the mortgage piece. They're the best in the world.
Yeah.
But hey, listen, what's so cool about these people doing so well is, I was talking to Shayla about, hey, here's how we're doing this, here's how we're doing that. And what happens too, I think ultimately you're that way, that's where you get really true long-term relationships with depth that will contribute to you at the highest level.
Yes.
I could show people result after result after result. I mean, I'm in two masterminds with Dean Gracios. He wants a 25K one. And, one thing I said, I do want to pass this on to people is one thing I said to myself when I went in there is, okay, I'm paying 25K 18 months ago. What am I going to get out of it? It's kind of like agents that say, or a customer would say to you, okay, I'm going to pay this much. What am I going to get out of it? And you know what? You know why things don't work out? The product you use, the teacher, the course, the coach you go to, is you do it backwards. I paid the 25K and I said, everything I'm going to get out of this is 100% up to me. I'm going to contribute at the highest level, not be this pain in the butt, but any way I can help people. Well, all of a sudden they have me speak there. Then all of a sudden I get a phone call from Dean random. Hey, don't want to hassle you, but you want to jump on my jet with Pace Morby and John Langbine and the founder of Grimaldi's and go to a mastermind at Glenn Stern's house. It's like it wasn't on my vision board to jump on Dean's jet. Would I love to? Yeah. No, it wasn't there. It shows up because of contribution, period.
Yes. So I love this. Just happened to me yesterday. So the day before yesterday,
Oh, with Glenn,
I was
right?
talking to Glenn, and Glenn said, "Hey, and it's just aligned because, a lot of it, I actually believe if I hadn't been in my training with William, this would not have happened. But, he said, hey, I'm stopping in Salt Lake on my way home to refuel. You want to jump on the jet with me? So
So cool.
same thing, right? So,
Same thing. Yeah.
hey, I've wondered this about you because you're always sharing the message of, every day, do what you have to do, make every day a success. But I don't hear you talk a lot about visualization, and I'm sure you do a lot of visualization. I mean, I look at the best of the best tennis players, basketball players, they all envision themselves winning the championship, right? They've all experienced it in their minds, in their subconscious before it actually happens. I'd just like to know, like, how does that show up in your life? Because you've gone from, in the last 5 years, I've seen you go from a lot of people not knowing who you are
No.
to like
Oh,
everybody knows who you are, right? So like, let's talk about that. Is that something you visualized, or is that not been a role in that in your life?
I'd be lying if I said it doesn't. Here's what I visualize. And I felt an emotion come over me too when my wife had sent me the video. One thing I do visualize genuinely is the people that I either get to work with or that are family members, people that I love and friends, having a good experience and having happiness as a result of something that maybe I had a hand in. My wife, her childhood was horses, and she's out there. She sends me a video when I'm out on the road. She's mucking the stalls, and I could just hear her voice and her happiness. Look at this. This is so great. This is wonderful. I visualize the happiness in all the people that are in my life. That's a big thing to me. The best way that I do it, that's for others, which when you do that, you get tenfold. As far as I print out my calendar every night, the night before, and I go through every single person and visualizing what their challenge, their frustration, where they're at and where I'm at in the relationship and knowing. So I visualize their happiness and their fulfillment. So that's in the workspace is all I visualize. Interesting, I don't visualize an income number. I don't do a business plan. But Brian, we could pop up my P&Ls from all my businesses, and I know real time on the Google Doc and where, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but from a life perspective, visualization, interesting. I was telling Dan Beer this. He says, Dan, did you know that I had my favorite toy was this plastic red barn and a little white fence and chickens and cows and horses and stuff? And so here I am out at my farm. That I do visualize experiences. And sometimes you get there, Brian, and you learn about yourself, which is great. I remember I had an income level that a number. I said, is the only time I really put something out there was I'm going to buy myself a ghost Rolls Royce when I hit X in income. And I hit that number. And I go, well, that's really stupid. And not picking on anyone. I mean, I know you're a car lover, but for me, right? Like, it's like,
I'm not a Rolls Royce guy though. The reason I buy cars is because I like to drive canyons.
you
And
like drive fast. It's like Gelman, okay? Mark Gelman. Gelman's like, you bought something that you have to go out to and work on. What are you doing? That's ridiculous. I'd never do it. I pay people to do it. So we all have those differences. But I think for me, everything is experiential that I visualize. And so it's seeing experiences that the people I love and care for, clients. I mean, when you work with people, as I'm fortunate to, and you too, I mean, you build these deep relationships. So I think the number one thing I visualize are experiences for the people in my life, people in business, then ultimately myself. That's
yeah.
it. I don't have any vision boards or anything up or anything like that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So we only have a few minutes left. So there's one other question that I want to ask you, and then there's a couple personal questions. Last thing on business, I was going to have you talk about, what team owners should do today and what agents should do today. I don't know if we have time for that. So I did want to dive into, though, like, I want to talk about your events because I hear a lot of people, like, so many people go to your events, and I know a lot of our top teams go to your events all the time. And they actually come to me and they say, yeah, I talked about this on John's stage. When I do a podcast with them, they talk about being on your stage. So it means a lot. But it also, this week, when I was at EXPCon, I had probably a dozen people come up and tell me they had seen Spring on your stage. So anyway, I know you're having an impact on the industry with your events. So I just want to talk about those. Why do you do them?
The first thing selfishly for me is, hey, I needed to get out here when I first started doing them. I need to get out here and build my brand and give people value and help them grow their business, partly business and partly in purpose. But what's really evolved, and I think the events you're talking about today that's gone on now for thematically for about 4 years, this theme of every single one of my events is the reason I do events today is so that people can get the absolute real time from the trenches, proven and tested activities that are working instead of something that's just general and theory based. So that is number one. Number two, it is for the purpose of community. Our mutual friend, who I've just had the privilege to get to know ironically, we'd never met in person really. I mean, passing once. I've had the privilege to get to know Benny,
Hmm.
over the last 4 months, and just a special guy. When I asked him, I said, okay, let's stop for a minute. Tell me about all your different businesses. Okay, you've got tech, but you've got offices, and then you've got the da, 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 da. I says, tell me the number one offer that really hooks people in all four of them. Let's talk on this one. He says, no, 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 no. He said it's one thing in all of them. I said, what? He said, community. Community. Community is why people come in and buy our products, stay with us. So I do it for community purposes. The third purpose is quietly to bring other people forward and get them to have the same opportunity that I had to build their brand.
Hmm.
Build their brand, to have, I mean, nothing makes me feel better than to hear people saw spring, or I think Matt just sat down with you too, didn't you? Matt Smith?
Yeah. Yeah. Just, he was my last podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's
So
an amazing guy. Amazing
yeah,
guy.
to see a guy like that who'd never went on stage, a Brandon Birmingham, okay? I was the first person to put Brandon Birmingham on stage 5 years ago. And now he's just sweeping the country. So I guess it's my selfish reason again, because my ultimate vision is seeing people in their best version of self and in their happiness. So it's certainly to bring people value, to impact their business, is to build community, but really to give people an opportunity, because I didn't know people. No one gave me an opportunity.
Yeah.
I went out and did free events and hustled for it. And so the third thing is bringing these people forward and allowing them to build their brand.
I think you and Ben and I all share this community thing. That's why we do quarterly events at Sisu, is just to bring them in and let them
Absolutely.
have the community. And also, there's nothing that feels better than when somebody comes to an event like that and they're maybe losing 20 grand a month or something, and they show up 90 days later and they're making 100 grand a month net,
Great.
right? Like nothing makes you feel better than that, right?
No, no, it's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing I want to ask you, John, thank you for being here. I love spending time with you whenever I see you. I wish I get to spend the amount of time with you that my wife gets to spend with you, but
Right.
I have a couple of personal questions. One, every time I see a post from you, I'm always asking myself two things. What shoes is he going to have on and what sunglasses?
Okay.
So those are things you like. You may not buy cars, but you buy those. So
Yeah,
let's talk about that for a minute.
sure. I always shoes. That's an interesting one. It just hit me. I've never answered it this way. Shoes. I remember being poor and being made fun of for the shoes that I had versus what everyone else had.
Okay. Well, I love the shoes you wear, so you made up for that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Sunglasses are a lot of people think it's a cool thing. It's a way I hide, actually. As much as I'm out there publicly, it's a comfort zone for me. I mean, if I'm going to wear them and people say, wait a minute, hide. Yeah, it's a comfort zone. It keeps me in my space. I'm a massive introvert. It's like, and fortunately my wife too. I mean, she's the same in that we come out to this farm and we go, people are like, you don't go to social stuff. So yeah, the sunglasses and then the tennis shoes, they weren't part of an initial get up or brand, but now it's part of what shaped the brand of
Yeah.
what it is. I mean, it's yeah, comfort zones and discomfort zones. The shoes were a
Huh.
discomfort zone as a child, picked on the clothes I wore and the shoes I wore. And so,
Thank you for being vulnerable in that and sharing
yeah,
that. I mean, that's truth. I can feel that's truth.
yeah,
So thank you for
yeah,
sharing. Spring and I are both introverts as well. And it's great to get out and we're all in front of the public a lot, right? And then we just like to go do our thing. So what my last question is really the ranch and the horses, because it's just seeing those horses, like those are some of the coolest pictures I've ever seen, is you guys out on the ranch.
yeah.
I was going to ask you like what got you into this, but now I know it's all from your wife.
It is. Yeah. We had 5 acres when I was raised. I did do a funny thing. Oh, you'll get a funny story out of this before we wrap. So as I was 12 years old, I think it was sixth or seventh grade, I would walk to the doctor twice from school, twice a week for my allergy shot. And so you got to sit in the waiting room, and there was a Better Homes and Gardens magazine. In the back of it, they had ordered chickens from a hatchery. So my mom called me up. We had 5 acres. My mom called me up. What's going on? I'm at the post office and this box addressed to you is chirping. I ordered 50 chickens, 50
Oh,
baby
I love
chicks
it.
in the mail at 12. So I had this fascination, and I played with plastic farm animals in a barn. So there was that for me. And then we had a little goat. But the true farmer, though, so that was my extent. I raised chickens, etc. But my wife was a barrel racer. And so she's going back to her childhood. And so there's the real deal there with the farm. And I love the outdoors and space, and I love seeing my wife happy.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Jon, again, thank you. It's just I just want to continue to see your success just blow up.
Thank you.
I'm one of your biggest fans. I know I don't let you know that all the time, but it's fun to see. Have a tremendous amount of respect for you. So thank you for jumping on the show. And, to you listeners out there, let people know and let Jon know. Like, if you guys have anything you need to reach out to Jon for, let him know. Jon, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
They can just go to my personal Facebook page, Jon Cheplak.
Okay.
Yep. Go to my personal Facebook page and find me there.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining another episode of the Grit Podcast. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks, bud. Thank
you for joining us on our podcast. If you have an interest in a free 7-day trial of Sisu, go to sisu.co, sisu.co. Make sure that you use the coupon code GRIT, that's GRIT, to waive all your setup fees and receive a 10% discount on your subscription. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and want to subscribe, search GRIT, the Real Estate Growth Mindset, on iTunes, Spotify, or Podbean. And with that, we'll catch you next time. Take care.